Hey guys, welcome back to Critical Flick. Today I'm reviewing the newest film from A24, Men. Men is directed by Alex Garland, who has done some of my favorite films and television show. I think Devs' excellent Ex Machina may be my favorite A24 film, and Annihilation is also masterfully made. But I have to say, he definitely took a different route. It takes a lot of risks, and I think some pay off and some don't in different ways, but definitely I love that he's able to shift genres and do something that's almost completely different from what he's done in the past. So in this film, Jessie Buckley plays Harper, and I have to say, Jessie Buckley is one of the most underrated actresses working today. I've seen plenty of movies with her where she's just phenomenal, and I love that she gets a chance to really carry this film on her own. Harper, she has just experienced some loss in her life. Her husband killed himself after a huge argument that they had, and she decides to go out to the countryside. She's going to try and get away from things, live in this small little English village, try to get with her own thoughts and get past this grief and all the guilt that she's feeling about these situations. Rory Kinnear plays the landlord of the estate, and he's also pretty much every other character with the exception of her ex-husband and her best friend. And he comes in different, incarnations. He plays a priest, he plays a young man, he plays the police officer. Like I said, he's the landlord. He's also this mysterious naked man that's wandering the forest. So he's playing all these different roles. So I have to say, as good as Jessie Buckley is, he really stands out as well because he has to do a lot, and a lot of really crazy acting, in my opinion. So like I said, she's out in the countryside, the English countryside, where there's some great cinematography. You get to see that juxtaposition between nature and man, and that's something that Alex Garland has always emphasized in his work, and this is definitely not an exception to that. You get to see the peaceful calmness of nature. There's a really great shot of Jessie Buckley's character walking down this country lane. She's looking up, she's seeing the light rain come down, she feels at peace with this wonderful nature that she's in. Then you also see the dark, gritty, carnal side of nature, whether it be the character, the naked man who's stalking the woods, or the dark tunnels, the things that make you scared. So you have the brightness and the joy of the daylight there, juxtaposed to the horrible, dark, foreboding side of nature. So I do like that those two come against each other. Another way that this movie capitalizes on Alex Garland's talents of storytelling, like I said with Nature and Man, is you see the primal side of man. While you have Rory Kinnear playing all these different men, it really does just tell the story of how men can be towards women, the oppressive nature of them, how in different roles, whether it be when they're young children or someone in a power of authority, whether it be a priest or a police officer, that you can be oppressed by them. And this character, Harper, is trying to get past her husband's oppression and her husband's abuse. And I think the story, in a way, is a lot of symbolism of how men can oppress women and how women can take on that oppression in different roles and how they handle that. So I think that it's really clever on how he does it because it's done in a horror way and it's a very cerebral way that he decides to do it. It's not like hitting you over the head with the concept, but I think it gets the point across. Now, the one part that I'll have to talk about that I think everyone is talking about essentially is the end of the movie, which is, in my opinion, really hard to decipher. I tried reading about it. I have a general concept of what was happening when I was watching it. It made me feel a certain way about what was happening. I think I aligned with some other people. But essentially what happens is you have Rory Kinnear's character chasing her around the estate and through, basically just shifting back and forth between these different characters. And then the most bizarre thing happens. So he gives birth to himself over and over again in a very grotesque and graphic way. And I think obviously that's trying to capture the idea of, man reincarnating and the idea of the woman and just the power behind that and just the evolution of man, because he's kind of changing between the boy to, the police officer to the priest and all the things that are shifting there. But even looking at the director's notes, he doesn't seem like he fully understands. It's kind of up for interpretation, but that's what I took away from it. It's kind of the evolution of man, the evolution of that oppression. And then finally he turns into her ex-husband, which is the ultimate manifestation of what she's been dealing with personally. So I think in a lot of ways, this movie isn't supposed to be taking us literally as she's away in this place and this guy's actually all these different characters. Though it is supernatural, it feels like a lot of it is in her mind and her representation of what is happening. There's also a lot of symbolism to pagan ideology of human spirits that are in nature and the energy of man and female and fertility and dominance and those two coming together. But I do like at the end, you get to see that Jessie Buckley's character, Harper, stands up for herself. She kind of gets past that whole block that she has with her husband because her husband kills himself because he is upset that she won't love him, even though he's horrible to her and abuses her. So I do like that you get that kind of finalization there, because you do get kind of an ending where you think it's going to end, but then it has a little post ending that I think clears it up a little bit more. It's still a little vague because you see her looking at the leaf that the one character has on his head, kind of the primal naked man, so that she's kind of gotten past that and destroyed that part of her mind. So there's a lot to interpret with this movie, and it is really weird. And I left the theater, I'm not going to say disappointed, but just kind of like, what, that was a little bit too much in my opinion. But I did enjoy it, so I have to give this movie a 7 out of 10. And I only say that because I think that it's an extremely well-made movie. I think it's well-directed. I think some of the imagery is really powerful. The practical effects of doing that whole scene and having him shift back and forth between these different people, but still being different enough that as an audience, it's so glaringly obviously that's him, but you could maybe understand how she doesn't recognize that. So I didn't enjoy that nature of it. It's very confusing. It keeps you on your toes the whole time, but it just gets so weird and it gets so convoluted that I feel like it would miss general audiences almost entirely. It reminds me of another film that I actually really enjoy called Under the Skin, where you kind of have to like read a thesis about it to fully understand what's happening. This isn't as weird as that movie, but definitely the last 15 minutes takes it to that level. So all in all, I did enjoy it. It's not my favorite A24 movie. It's probably actually my least favorite of Alex Garland's work, even though it's a high bar because I love his other films. So if you go into it expecting it to be like those sci-fi kind of elements that you saw in those first ones, you might be a little disappointed. But if you go into it as kind of a thought piece on the oppression of man and the relationship with man and nature and women and that all coming together and doing it in a way that's extremely artistic, then I think you'll really enjoy it. If you checked out Men, let me know what you think about it. I'm really interested to see your thoughts and theories, because it seems like everybody has a different theory about what this film may have been about. Even the director says it's open for interpretation. So leave those comments down below. If you went into it not knowing what it was going to be, let me know what you thought about it, because a lot of these A24 horror films, they market as like a traditional horror movie, and then you go into it and it's just an art film that's completely different from that, which is horror elements. Let me know what you thought, because if you went into it thinking that, you might have really hated it. And I always love to hear like people that go into a movie like this and they absolutely hate it. So leave those comments down below. Remember to like and subscribe, and see you guys next time.